Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, and perhaps even good evening. Thank you so much for dropping by and joining me for another exciting. It's not the In the Studio with Daz Studio, it's the Daz Plus Pro Artist Series. What a complicated name. Wonderful to see you all. Mr. Brian is here. The AMZ Dev MO is here. Forgotten lectures are here. Lyra is here. I believe I've seen the Lioness and Misty Black in the chat. The Web Soul, and I believe Julia is also here. The Dragonade is also here. And I have seen someone else in the chat earlier that I've totally forgotten. If I haven't given you a shout out, I do apologize. I hope we're going to have a lot of fun today with converting skin textures from older Genesis characters to the new Genesis 9 figure. It's a bit of a complicated process. And I'm really glad you mentioned this in the chat earlier, that why don't we just use the Legacy UVs product by Cayman Studios and then be done with it? Well, because that is a product, I'm totally happy to look at that actually. It's a product that came out literally a couple of days ago, yesterday maybe, actually it was yesterday. And that doesn't actually convert textures, that just uses existing textures and applies them to the Genesis figure. So currently we have, this is actually the product here. This is the Legacy UVs for Genesis 9 for Genesis 3, 8, and 8.1 female. So this doesn't do male products right now, but a male version, says Cayman Studios, is in the works. So that is coming. So this is not a converter product. So as such, this is designed for users who want to use existing skin textures with the new figure. But like Linus quite correctly says, it works with a combination of a new UV set as well as geografts. So the new UV set shifts whatever is on the existing texture into place, and then the geografts are filling out the missing bits that don't exist, and then that's basically how that works. And the results are okay. It's a little fiddly, but if you want, we can have a look at how to do this. I made a video about this yesterday that will be released soon, and that'll show everyone how it works. So it's this is a nice example here of Victoria 8.1's tattooed skin that is now on the Genesis 9 figure. But as I said, this is a very different process than actual texture conversion. So what I'm going to show you today is something that works with the R3DS Wrap product, that works by literally turning. So the steps involved are a little bit finicky, and hence this session is designed for PAs and power users really, who have maybe started working on a Genesis 8 skin set or made a skin set for Genesis 8 or 8.1, and now the new figure came out and you think, I'd really like to convert that and make it a native Genesis 9 thing. How do I even do that? Do I have to start from scratch? And thankfully, no, you don't have to do that. It will, there's a way to properly convert this. And R3DS Wrap, the Russian 3D scanner, is the program that I've shown you in a previous session in which I've wrapped an arbitrary body scan around the Genesis 8 figure, and the steps are fairly similar to getting this done with Genesis 9 and converting skin textures. So in principle, the steps are: you have Genesis 8, or you have your legacy character as well as Genesis 9 in Daz Studio, and you use the Texture Atlas tool in order to create a single UDIM tile of all the texture so that everything fits onto one tile. You do that for both Genesis 9 and your legacy character. Then you bring both of those into R3DS wrap Genesis 9 around your legacy character, put the texture, the single tile UDIM of your source character into the source figure, and then you let R3DS Wrap convert this to the single tile you've generated for Genesis 9. You export that out, you apply that in Daz Studio, and that kind of gets you to where you want to be already, but it's still a single tile. So then you have to use another tool inside Daz Studio, namely Map Transfer, to reconvert the single tile texture into the multiple UDIMs. And that's a bit of a lengthy, complicated process, and that is exactly what we're going to go through today. Welcome, Jeff. Good to see you, buddy. So, but first of all, I have a bit of a question to ask you in regards to, let's do a little poll here. I was thinking to avoid the whole nudity thing, let's go and convert a male character. Also, the legacy UVs can't do it. Let's just use a male character for this demo. And you have the choice of letting me know what character you'd like to convert. I have a little bit of everything here. I was thinking we can either use Wolfgang 8.1. There'll be a little poll that Jules is going to write now. Then you get to literally press a button and tell me which figure you'd like me to convert. So we can either convert Wolfgang here, our piratey guy with all the scars here and with or without skin issues. He's been in a major accident there. So Wolfgang is one option. We can also convert the Brute. Brute is a wonderful character. Quite nice, bit of a toon guy, and it's like, could punch you in a second. So we could use the Brute. Very cool. And speaking of toon guys, we can also go and convert the Guy 7. So this is a Genesis 3 character. We've got a little bit of everything. I really love this guy. He's basically the male counterpart to the girl. Genesis 3. There was some, as well as Genesis 2, there were some really good characters in there. Very nice. Look at that chin. Look at that expression. Very good. There's a really cool expression product for the Guy. I forgot who made it, but it was just really nice. I liked it. Been using it a lot back in the day. And then of course there is Darius. So for Darius, I do actually have two versions. I've got either Darius 8 or Darius 7 in my library. So we can convert either or. And if we have time, we can even convert 2. But if you do let me know which one you prefer, let's go and do this thing. You love Darius, and me too. Me too, absolutely. My vote is for Darius, actually. Let's see who we want. See who we want. And who you want, actually. So the process is pretty much the same for all of these characters. Now, while you vote, I might go into Daz Studio and start with converting the Genesis 9 figure. So there's a little interesting tidbit of information with Genesis 9 and the UVs that we have as a choice here. Let me go into this and just load the regular Genesis 9 figure. So this here, not the def load. I'm going to just use this one here with the eyes and all that. JD is up for the Brute. Linus likes the Brute. Sorry, Linus likes, oh dear, likes Darius. Misty likes Wolfgang. Oh my goodness, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. So with Genesis 9 here, hello buddy, how's it going? If we go into the Surfaces tab and open them up under Surfaces, I'll just go and type in UV at the top here. And you'll see that there are already multiple UV sets available. This one is actually, these are part of the legacy UV converter here, because I've got that product installed. I've got these extra 3, so they're usually not there. So this one here, the base multi UDIM UV set, that's the one that we currently use for all Genesis 9 figures. Genital map is another thing. Then there's the base single UDIM. That is actually a single UDIM tile already that Daz internally use when they bring in textures from, I suppose, their high-res working version. And there's a script that kind of splits that out into 4 tiles. So this is literally just a quad view of that. But then we also have these two, which is the base single UDIM old and the base multi UDIM old. And those are things that were used in the development of the Genesis 9 figure. So they might go away at one point. So technically, and I've tried this before, I tried to use this, but that doesn't quite work. Let me see if I can show you the UVs here. UV view, that's all the overlapped UVs. But then this one here, the single UDIM, that looks, hello. Oh, this doesn't update automatically, does it? Got to do this, and then you go back to this, and then we see that. This is the single UDIM tile. So we're going to create something similar. I don't know why this didn't work for me. I think the conversion process with Texture Atlas is, I don't know, that's something that R3DS Wrap likes. So I'm gonna make my own, and they're going to be called Atlas UVs later. Just so that you know there is something like that already on the figure. I'm going to switch this back to multi-UDIM, and I'm going to go and start using Texture Atlas to literally create my own thing. So this works by right-clicking on the Surfaces tab here. Texture Atlas is something that can create a new UV set essentially on the same figure. So right-click on this and head over to Texture Atlas, and this now gives you an overview of if you were to use all these surfaces, what they would look like on one UV tile. You just hit auto arrange and wait a second while Daz Studio works as that, and there we go. That's what that looks like. This doesn't actually look all that noticeable because we have gray overlays on a gray figure. So let me just go and just get rid of that and make it a little something else like green. That's probably just more visible when we have that. Hit auto arrange. It is good for substance, absolutely, yes. So you don't have to deal with multiple UDIMs that way. And so there is actually, I'll show you where that script is that Daz used to split the large texture into a small one, but they don't have the reverse. I'd love it if we could have a reverse. So this is essentially as good as it gets for the reverse. So this here shows you all the surfaces and how much space they're currently taking up on the single UV map that you'd make out of that. If I do this, can we still see everything without cutting anything off? Let's hope, let's hope. So I can give these things weight, and I can also disable stuff that I don't want to see. Like I don't want to deal with the eyes or the mouth and the teeth. So I can just go and untick that here. Tear duct, I'm not going to deal with. Fingernails, toenails, yes. Legs, mouth cavity, that's the inside of the mouth, so I'm going to leave that. Arms, head, body, I want that. The albedo variation light, I think I want that as well. Eye moisture, I don't want to do. Eye color, eye moisture, eyelashes, and that. I'm going to untick that and hit auto arrange again. And then this is what the layout would look like. Now this down here, that is, I think that is still the eyelashes. So I'm going to go and get rid of that as well. I think, yeah, there we go. We don't need that. So this is now, only those things will be converted into the new tile. But I can see that the torso compared to the fingernails, I mean, the fingernails getting as much attention as the whole torso. That's really not something that I want. So I can go and give these things different weight. So like the torso or the body in this case, I can set this number from 1 to 2. If I set that higher, then this will be made larger. So hit auto arrange again. And then now the torso is larger here. So still the teeth are a little bit taking up too much room, as well as the mouth cavity here, so I don't think I need quite that much. So I can also make the number smaller. So in this case here, the toenails, I'm going to go and put 0.5 in this, like so, and that's the toenail, same as the fingernail, so 0.5 is just half of that. And go, I think mouth cavity can also be 0.5. Hit auto arrange, and then that looks a bit more healthy here. I think we can live with that. So you could fiddle around with this and literally turn this into the texture layout that you want, and that all comes for free in Daz Studio. It's kind of cool. Those were the nails. The albedo variation light thin, was that the nails? I mean, you can bring them back and just go auto arrange again. Are you sure? No, these are the eyelashes here. Those are the nails. These are the eyelashes, aren't they? I think I'm going to get rid of those. There. Boom. So this is just the preview for us. So when we're happy with the layout, let's go and hit accept. And then we're being asked, where do we want to save our maps and how large do we want our maps to be? So I'm going to go and save those on my desktop. I don't have a folder for this session just yet. Am I allowed to look at my desktop computer? Yeah, there we go. Let's make a new folder called texture conversion, perhaps. And in it, I might just go and make one that I'll call G9 single UDIM. And for G9, this isn't actually that important where this goes, because we don't need large maps for this at all. We're not really going to use the textures we're copying out. That is more important for the next character, which is going to be our source character. So here under image settings, you would specify how large your single UDIM tile needs to be. So we could go with an 8K tile, like 8192 by 8192. I'm not going to do that for Genesis 9 because we're not converting anything. So 512 is adequate for this. But for the next character, we're gonna do this differently. Atlas UVs is essentially the name that my new UV set is gonna get. And the images down here, this is kind of all based on 3D light, so we don't really call these things diffuse anymore. But if you leave everything ticked, then everything will be converted that Daz Studio finds. So let's go hit accept, and that's basically our Genesis 9 figure taken care of. We're going to go and export them in a moment as well. But first of all, I want to see what character we're actually converting. Oh, looks like Darius has won with 50% over Wolfgang with 43%. The poor guy didn't really get any votes. The poor guy, what of those things? So then, of course, that brings us to the next question. Are we going to use Darius 7 from Genesis 3, or are we going to use Darius 8 from Genesis 8? That is another question I want to ask you, and that's another poll that we need to know about. While I still fiddle with Genesis 8. I'm going to go and turn this back into like a, palatable gray here. That's cool. When you use R3DS Wrap to create morphs for the Genesis figure, you would want to use Genesis in this position, so as they are, rather than change it, because this is kind of the base geometry that we need later. But for the skin transfer, we need something that is akin to the UV prep pose, and you can use that. It comes with most characters under poses at the very bottom here. That's the UV prep pose. If you apply that to Genesis, then we see that the eyes are closed and the fingers are spread out. So that makes this is essentially easier for texture artists to get into crevices and stuff, and things like, into the mouth and all that. Eyelashes we're not worried about. We're gonna not export them, same as the eyebrows as well. So this is a good start. We don't necessarily need things like the navel or the nipples, so they are often also dialed in or out with the UV prep poses. So I'm okay with this. I think I can leave this and just go and export my Genesis 9 figure with the following settings. I'm going to go and put this into the texture conversion, and I'm going to call this one G9 single as OBJ, and the settings are I'm going to use the Modo preset here just because it looks a little bit nicer inside R3DS Wrap. So I'm going to go and use Modo. That sets the scale to 1%. And then at the top here, I'm going to click Filter Objects, Selected Roots, and that means only the body is exported, but any attachments aren't exported. So I'm gonna leave it. Resolution wise, we're okay. I can leave this on sub D1. That's totally fine, because since we're not bringing this in as a morph, we're okay. Then that's my Genesis essentially done and dusted. Oh, there we go. And here I think we have our answer already. I believe we have 88% of you would like to see the Genesis 8 version of Darius converted. So let's go do that. I like it. I like it. Let's do that. Thank you for your votes. That's true, Unknown Robot, that's true. I'm not converting those. I'm literally just using the skin here, because the eyes on Genesis 9, they're either easy to remake. If you want to take across the eye texture of your source model, they're really easy to apply, or just resize with Photoshop. So I'm not going to worry about that. The only thing I'm doing is the outer skin here and the mouth cavity. Perfect. Let's go and do that then, Mr. Darius. All right. Do we have him installed? Yes, there we go. Darius 8. Here we go. Thank you for your votes. I appreciate that. I very much appreciate that. So essentially, we're going to do the same thing with Darius 8 now that we did with Genesis. So we'll go and use the UV prep pose, and we'll go and turn the multiple UDIMs on him into a single tile, and then we're going to export that at a slightly higher resolution, if ever he loads. This is one of those things. Maybe it's time for me to pour myself another cup of coffee while we wait, since it is such a sleepy Saturday. What are you guys drinking while you're watching? Did I actually click this? No, I didn't, did I? Dang! Jay messed up. Tea for Dragonate, okay. Water for Jeff, I like it, I like it. Diet Dr. Pepper, ooh, Lioness, you know how to celebrate. Tea wins. Red Bull and water on the side, I like it. Very, very cool. Hey Darius, how's it going, my man? Good stuff, good to see you, buddy. Okay, so let's do the conversion first. And remember how to do that? It's right click with Darius selected, right click on the Surfaces tab and hit on Texture Atlas. And we'll see what all of this looks like. I probably already don't really need the eye moisture, the eyelashes, face, mouth, torso, legs, arms, eyes, eye moisture, and cornea. We don't really need that. So I'm going to untick that immediately, hit auto arrange, see what Daz Studio comes up with there as a preview. There we go. That is quite cool. So I'm thinking, once again, just like before, we don't, this is both the teeth as well as the inside of the mouth. No, these are the nails. That's not the teeth. No, hang on. The nails are this. These are the teeth. So I think just for the sake of the mouth inside, I may have to go and convert this as well. Good question. Yeah, I'm going to leave this as is. And I'm just going to make the torso larger and this one a bit smaller here. So the mouth will be 0.5. So that makes it smaller. And then the torso here is going to be 2. Let's see what that looks like. On Genesis 8.1, you'd have that additional face texture. There we go. That should be okay, shouldn't it? That should be okay. Let's roll with this. Defo the teeth. I like it. And on robot, yes, good question. That is a good question. I didn't do that because for some reason, and I really don't have an explanation for that, R3DS Wrap wasn't happy converting the results onto that single UDIM. I wanted to use it, but I think it got confused because the inside of the mouth was not mapped. So it could be that if you take that out, then it'll work. But in my tests, it wasn't working. So that's why I'm using the Texture Atlas to essentially create a known result rather than something that, that didn't quite work. Yeah, if we could make that work, that would be really, really awesome. But I wasn't able to get good results with that. So essentially like this part here, the mouth opening was always overlaid on the head, and I couldn't figure it out why. But if I use Texture Atlas on both figures, then I didn't have that issue. So one of those things. Let's give Texture Atlas a place for the conversion. So I'm going to go and call this one here Darius 8 single. On my desktop. I'm going to convert all the maps. I want to use a PNG file here. And on the image settings, I want to go as large as possible. So you can literally turn this into 16K or even 32K texture. I think I'm going to go with an 8K texture. That should be enough here. So 8192 by 8192 PNG file. And we'll see what maps we get with this. So I would imagine we have at least a diffuse, and we probably also have a normal. And aside from that, I don't know. We'll see what we get. Right. You're very familiar with the Genesis 8 UVs. Okay. Okay, interesting. Unknown robot. Yeah, it's certainly, I got to say, it's certainly still early days for me in this whole process. This is the first thing I thought as well. Well, great, we have a single tile UDIM with Genesis 9. Let's go and use that. But somehow I just couldn't make it work. So while this is running here, let me go and open up Windows Explorer and just have a look what it's actually saving there. Whoops, that was it. Good stuff. This one was texture conversion. Darius 8 single. There we go. So we have 3 maps, it looks like. One is definitely the diffuse, one's the normal, and one is the bump. Okay, we have a bump as well. Good stuff. That's cool. And that is what it now looks like. So all the detail, thanks to that 8K map, is preserved. If we go and zoom in, there's definitely a ton of texture there, but you can go larger if you like. And this is really important to get this out as large as possible, especially for the face. So if you want to do 16K, totally fine. Okay, but of course it looks very different than the layout that we have for Genesis 9. So you may notice that he looks a little wonky now. So that's just because the new textures have applied, but the shader settings on a per surface basis are not correct. That's fine. We can ignore that. That's cool. Let's give him the UV prep pose as well. See if I can find it here. Oops. Under starter essentials, under poses. UV prep pose. There we go. Boom. Ta-da, perfect. And he's got nipples as well. I'm thinking of just taking those out. Yeah, let's go live without nipples. Buddy, sorry about that. Not good for the whole wrapping thing and stuff. Let's see where they are. Under actor, we have nipples. Okay, let's go and undo that. Perfect. But everything else will remain the same, like jaw open or mouth open here, and his fingers and his toes spread. So that's kind of what we want. Perfect. Let's go export you out. Under File, Export, Darius 8 single as OBJ. Whoops. That is, I didn't quite mean to do that. Let's go call you Darius single. I didn't mean to go into the folder. I meant to save the OBJs out here. 1% filter object selected roots so that we don't include any attachments. And then that is it. So that concludes our first session in Daz Studio. We'll come back to this later. I might just go and minimize this and open R3DS Wrap, and then we're going to go and wrap the Genesis figure, the Genesis 9 figure, around Darius, not for the purpose of creating a morph this time, but with the purpose of transferring the texture. Perfect. So this is a node-based program. If you haven't seen this before, it might look a little bit scary, but this viewport here on the left hand side, that can be switched into various modes depending on what we need. And on the right hand side, this is where we put the nodes in, and on the bottom here, this is where we have settings on a per node basis. So it looks really scary when you start with it, but it is extremely intuitive once you get to know it. It's a very, very powerful application. Last year they had a Christmas sale on. If you're interested in this app, then I don't know if they have a Black Friday sale, but they did have a Christmas sale last year. So right, Brian is so correct. Goes on sale in December. Oh, you found it under Edit Object Geometry Texture Atlas. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it's usually that's interesting, WebSol. Yeah, it's either if it's on the, if it doesn't appear here, then I don't know. It should also be on this menu here, on the context menu. But if you found it, that's good. I mean, like so many things in Daz Studio, things are often in multiple places. So you found it in Object Geometry. Is it here? I can't see it on mine. Interesting. Oh, there's Surfaces, Texture Atlas. Interesting. Well, I'm glad you found it. That's the main thing. It's full price right now. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we'll load in both figures, and that happens with a right click on this gray thing here where it says right click, press tab and drag and drop here. So right click, and we're going to use a load geometry node. In fact, twice. You can rename those, and I tend to do that with F2. So this is going to be our Genesis 9 figure, just so that I know what's what, because I need 2 of those. I'll right click again and say load geometry. And this here, F2, is going to rename that, and the little dialog comes up down here somewhere. And I'll call him Darius. There. Spaces are not allowed. It'll be replaced with an underscore here. And let me go and load my figures in first. So with this node selected at the bottom right, I can go and just click on this thing here and then pick what I want to load. So in my case, it's here, texture conversion. This is G9 single. And with F, I can go and frame this up. And then I can make, like Alt left click is going to be, it's a bit like Maya viewport navigation, scroll wheel in and out. And I think the wireframe is a little bit, much, so I can go and disable that. And I think I'm going to give you a different color as well. I might not, I might just go leave you blue. That's cool. I'll do the same for Darius. Select Darius. And pick up Darius single here, and that brings him in. So he's significantly larger, but hey, that's okay. So for Darius, I'm going to go and use the texture on him immediately. Oh yeah, this little lamp icon here, that makes things invisible. So if we just wanted to focus on Darius, just click the untick Genesis 9, and then that node isn't shown in the viewport here. So with Darius, we have a texture, so we want to display that texture immediately at the top here. So right click, load save, load image, and that gets put into here. The software is a little pernickety in that when you make a change to a node that's already in use, then both of these nodes show this little exclamation mark that show you, hey, something's not right and it's not working anymore. You've made a change and now things aren't working anymore. So if I did the wrap first and then load in a texture, I'd have to do the wrap again because the software is going to complain, hey, now you've added the texture, and that totally confuses me, and it's one of those things. So with this node selected here, I can go and bring in the Darius single one by one, so it doesn't take all of them. We'll use the diffuse first, and once we've done that, we can just go and replace that and then load this, export that, load this, export that. So we're going to start with the diffuse, load that. Moments later, we have Darius. All right, buddy, looking pumped. He's okay geometry wise, right? Yeah, there's no eyelashes. Oh yeah, this is another thing I should have mentioned. He has painted on eyebrows, so we don't really do that anymore. We now have eyebrow attachments. I didn't check if Darius comes with a material set that has no eyebrows. That is one thing you might want to check if you do these conversions. You probably want to convert the thing without the eyebrows. I don't know if he has such an option. Looks like he doesn't. So you can go and use something like no eyebrows. There we go. No eyebrows face. That's RSL. Do we have MD? Yes, we do have that. So yeah, he does have that. So you could just use the no eyebrow version. I should have done that. I might just go and crack on with it. And if we wanted to do this again, we know where that is. So sorry about that. Totally going to leave your painted eyebrows on. But yeah, it's good to just not do that. So then saves me exporting him again. I can show you this. Maybe I'll show you this again with another character if we have the time. So now comes the interesting part in which we're going to wrap this figure around the other figure. So we're going to wrap Genesis 9 around Darius now, for which we need probably two things. One is an alignment node. I'm going to use fast wrapping. There's wrapping and fast wrapping. They're pretty much identical. Fast wrapping works a little faster, especially on the higher sub-D levels. And this takes 4 inputs, 2 of which are necessary, which is one is the floating geometry, which is Genesis 9 in our case. So left click and drag, connect that here. Then the next one is the fixed geometry, which is Darius. Let's do that. And then we have 2 other inputs that we can use, but we don't have to. The first one here, or the third one rather, is the one that lets us select point pairs. So I have a feeling the program isn't going to be able to work this out all that well. And usually it's the fingers and the toes that have an issue. But I'm going to just try it and see how far it gets. So with this node selected here, I'm just going to click compute, and we'll see how well or not so well that works. There's some options that you have on this node in which you can say, yep, it's almost there, it's almost there. There are some options on this node in which you can select how many subdivisions this should happen with under the hood. So it uses 3. This is important to remember if you want to wrap higher sub-D characters and you're using something like sub-D 4 out of Daz Studio, then this will also add at least 3 subdivisions or levels, or as many as you give it here, to make the wrap possible. So that could lead to really long-running calculations. Oh, you lost the node view. Ow, ouch. Oh, ouch. Oh, really, Brian? That's awesome. It's on sale for 50% off now. That's amazing. How exciting. How exciting. That is very, very good. Node view. Oh, I think it's panels show. Is it graph? Yeah, there we go. That's how you bring it back. Panels show graph. That's how you bring it back, in case you lose it. And I think presets, I think default will just reset the whole thing. I believe that's how that works. So let's go and switch off Genesis and Darius and see what we're left with. So the result of the wrapping without any points is looking wonky. So the toes aren't lining up. We have 5 fingers, but I don't think they're they look all that correct, so it could probably do with some helper points. There's also other things that I could have done, which like the whole head adjustment didn't quite work, and that's because I kind of forgot something. If you look at both these characters, they're not very much lined up when they come in. I should have really made Darius a little smaller, just so that Wrap can have a better time figuring this out. And since we've missed the eyebrows totally, I think I might just do Darius again, if you don't mind, because then we have a much better result in the wrapping. We can leave this up here, but I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and delete Darius out, load him in again, and then first of all we're going to take care of the eyebrows, and we'll do the texture atlas again, and then we're going to do the scale in comparison to the Genesis 9 figure. Man, the head just doesn't look good, does he? Totally doesn't look good. So let's take care of the eyebrows first. Super important. Also at this point, if your character has things like tattoos you want to bring with you, there is face no eyebrows. All right, I'm liking it, I'm liking it. Now we'll go with the UV prep pose. Oops. 50% off, that is a really good deal. So that makes it around $200, just slightly less, right? And we said no nipples, just because there we go, nipples is already perfect. Let's do that. And now let's go bring Genesis 9 back and just make Darius a little bit smaller. I think I can just use size for this, or scale rather, and just so that, yeah, he's 106, something like that. So we just want to do something like that. It doesn't have to be super accurate, but just something that makes it easier for Wrap to figure out what's the nose, what's the ears. So it's really good at figuring these things out. So we're okay here. So this is all right. This is fine. Let's go and use the texture atlas again. So once again, mine happens on the right click on the surfaces tab, texture atlas, and face, yes, mouth, torso, legs, arms, eyes, no, moisture, cornea, eye moisture and eyelashes, no. And we said the torso could have a 2, but the mouth should maybe have a 0.5 or something even less, you know. Jeff won't be happy about that. Ouch, yes. Let's make sure it doesn't happen again, huh? Accept, and we'll go and use the same directory as before, which I should really just copy into here. Like that. I'm going to overwrite everything that I have in here. And I'm going to stick with 8192 as PNG. Perfect. Atlas UVs 1 is fine. That's cool. And off it goes. Yes, I find it's a really just magic software, R3DS Wrap. It just does something magical that I didn't know could be done, you know. So this is Daz Studio writing out all the maps. It's kind of nice. It leaves the old ones there. So if we do want a with eyebrow version, we can have that, or we can just, you know, delete them. That's also fine. And the larger your maps are, the longer it'll take Daz Studio to crank this out. And then later on, we're going to see another tool that's going to take a little bit of calculation there when we use map transfer. That's also a cool tool. Yeah, so these ones with the underscore, the Atlas UV1, that is the new ones here. And these are the old ones, so I just need to remember that. And technically, yeah, no, the Darius figure needs to be exported as well. Let's go do that. Export Darius single. Save, over save is all good. Boom. And now back in R3DS Wrap, we don't have to rebuild everything, we can just reload Darius. So with this Darius node selected, on the bottom here, there's this reload button. And if we click that, then Darius is going to be size adjusted. So it basically just reloads the file. We still have the old texture in here. So here's the one with the eyebrows here. Let's go and change that as well. On load image, I'll just use Atlas UVs 1. That's this one here. That's our new set. Takes a second. Sometimes if the viewport doesn't update, but you know a change has been processed, just move the viewport and then things will be updated. So okay, let's go try this again on the fast wrapping node here. Compute. Let's see if that works any better. So now it's just easier for R3DS Wrap to see where things are, and we're going to have a much better result, especially when it comes to the poor face. We still may have issues with the hands. Oops, wrapping on. So this is now the Genesis 9 geometry in the shape of Darius. And it looks like it's got everything. The fingers are where they're supposed to be. Feet are looking handsome. I'm not entirely sure about the toes. That might be just the way Darius' toes look. Yeah, they used to look like that. So there's nothing broken there. Just thought, you know, it's good to have a look. No, that is just what the toes look like. Anything about the face, rest of the body? Like the small parts are often what can cause issues, like, you know, eyes and stuff, ears. It looks all fairly handsome here. No tooth approach. It's just how the cookie crumbles. This is pretty good, right? And this is without any adjustments. That's quite funky. So that is something you can also do really, really easy. If you did have something slightly wonky that you wanna rectify, I recommend using the sculpting brush at the end of the wrapping process. But it looks like it's almost not necessary. There might be things like small things on the fingernails that we'll see how that works. I just wanted to show you this. Right click here, and under geometry, there's the brush node. And this works. This is seriously magic. This literally restores features that the original Genesis figure had on our wrapped version. So anything that went wrong, it literally goes and restores. You don't have to sculpt it in, you just have to brush over it and restore it. It's really, really cool. Let's see how this works. So geometry, that's our input here. That needs to be whatever comes out of the wrapping node. Then the second one is a reference. That's just a visual thing that we can put in. We don't have to use it. The next one is the geometry source, and that is going to be our undeformed Genesis figure. That goes into here. And then we can also remove polygons here with the red thing. If you wanted to sculpt on the inside of something, you can select some polygons, then plug that into here. Then that's just not going to show up in the node. And this one here, vertex mask, I just suppose, you know, a mask as the name suggests. So with brush node selected, we can go into the visual editor and we see Darius again, as well as some sculpting tools here on the left hand side. And the one I'm using is the clone one here at the bottom, and that's the one that does this. So if there's anything that should look more like the original Genesis figure, we can make that happen. Square bracket keys makes the brush a little smaller. So let me try this on the ears and see if anything changes. I don't think it is. Yeah, it's barely noticeable because the ears are okay. Control Z will undo this. There was a small change where we just basically now make the ears like Genesis 9's ears. Control Z, you can just about see how that works. But we're good, we're good. I'll show you this on the fingernails. Sometimes, oh yeah, the eyes as well. Sorry, eyes. Sometimes you see that some polygons might be too close to one another, so just left click and drag over that, and you can smooth this out here. I think this part here, you can just about barely see that. Left click and drag, and then it just makes it basically perfect, like it is in Genesis 9. That is quite fantastic, isn't it? So for details, super nice. Also, almost as a ZBrush replacement. If you don't want to pay the ZBrush subscription. Sometimes you get these little, they manifest as little dark cracks here in the nails, but I don't really see those here. But you can literally restore the Genesis 9 nails to perfect condition. We don't really need it here, so it's you know, I just wanted to show you that is possible if that is something you you desire. And if you do have difficult wraps where you have a figure that wasn't lining up and you didn't have the perfect wrap like we had, same with the toenails here, I don't think we have a problem. Oh, one other thing, if you ever in this and you go too close to the body and you get the clipping here and you'd rather that didn't happen, that is, I believe, that is under Edit Preferences. There is the near clip plane. I believe the default is 0.1, and that clips quite fast. So that you know, if you wanted to go close and you see something like this, and you know it clips too fast, that is where that's hiding. So Edit Preferences and the camera, just add an additional 0 in the near clip plane. That's what that is. Good thing we didn't need it. It's all good. To lock this in, you just need to click accept at the bottom of the node with the node selected here. Click accept, and then that'll look all the changes in. And now we can go and literally convert our texture. So wrapping node we can switch off as well. Brush node is the only one that exists, and we'll go and play with converting the texture now. So that is another node, as you can imagine, and it's also, I think it's under image, transfer texture. This is essentially the magic thing that's going to happen now. It takes several inputs. The first one is the source geometry. So that is, in our case, the Darius source geometry that goes into here. The second one is the target geometry. So that is whatever comes out of our brush node or the wrapping node respectively. So that is the target. And then that takes a moment to calculate. And then the next one, excluded target polygons, we don't need to connect. So that's as easy as it is. So source, target, and then when you select this node, you have to go into viewport 2D to see what that does. So it doesn't apply it to the character. It's literally just a 2D flat texture that you could now put into another thing that you take out of here just for preview purposes, but we're going to be okay with this. So viewport 2D, and this is our converted texture for Genesis 9. Kind of cool. So at the bottom of this node here, the transfer texture node, we have the width and height of how large we want that texture to be. Currently it's 1K, so let's make that larger. I'll stick with 8K, so 8192 by 8192. Whoop, not 8291. Sorry. Dang. 8192. There we go. Takes a second. And then we're there. So that's Darius and all his skin detail intact, which is cool, but fitting our Genesis 9 geometry now. So that is groovy. You can save this out with another node, with the save image node, but what I would recommend is to fill in these empty details here. If you apply this texture now to the Daz figure, you'll see texture seams, and that's because there's just literally no margin there. It's literally pixel for pixel calculated, old to new, or target, source to target. To make this, to get rid of that, there's another node also under image, and that is called extrapolate image. And if you add that node, connect that here, then takes a moment to calculate again. Then we fill out all these details, and then we don't have the texture seams anymore, which is really nice. At some point. Still working on it. Is it that difficult to fill it out? Should I have done that in Photoshop? No, there we go. So it just goes and grabs the pixels from the side and just goes and tries to interpolate everything. It looks weird when compared to this, but it is still the exact same texture, just with filled in detail now. And that's exactly what we need to avoid those seams. Perfect. So we're almost done. The last remaining bit that we need to do is to save this texture out. So that is another process we need to get comfortable with. On one hand, we go to load save and we say save image, and we hook that up. So we hook this up to here, and this node then does the saving, but it doesn't do this automatically. So you have to go and give it the name at the bottom and the location. And once you've done that, you have to click the compute current frame button for the actual saving to begin. So let's go do that. I'll make a new folder just so that we don't get confused. I'll call this one Darius converted. Or let's call it Darius 9 converted, actually. Just so that we know this matches the 9 UDIM set. And I'll call it Darius 9 base single. And down here, I'm going to have to pick a file type. I'm going to use PNG for this and hit save. And you'd think that has saved things, but that's not how R3DS Wrap works. So you really have to go and say compute current frame, and this now saves it. So it's a good habit to get into. Thank you so much to Brian, by the way, who introduced me to this software. It's a really, really funky little project. I never regretted buying it. It's a very, very cool thing. Very cool thing to buy. So that was the base texture, and I'm going to go and leave this up a little bit so that you can make a good screenshot of the node setup here. I don't know if I can actually share the project. I should maybe save it, save project as, and we'll go and convert the other ones. I'll just call it Darius 9, and that's the native project file here. Can't we do this by using the G8 default character morph, only for the textures to be done instead of using the character shape? And then once we have the texture, use it with the G9 converted character. You can do that. You can do that. It's not really intended for I'll say casual users. This is really meant for PAs who have started working on a texture set that they want to use natively and sell natively on another character. So if you're a user and you just want to apply a texture set from Darius 8 onto Genesis 9, you can use the legacy UV set that won't convert the textures. It'll literally apply the textures as they are to the new figure. So that is another option, but that's not something you can use if you wanted to sell a character or if you wanted to sell a texture set. I should get a commission. I think last time they gave us a discount code. I don't think they do that this time. But then, hey, if it's already half price, super, super awesome. Hey, so to convert another texture, we can go and load it into this node here. So with load image, you'll go and just pick the next one in the list. So this was the diffuse. If we go and use the normal now, that's the Atlas UVs 1, that's this one. Hit open, then that takes a moment to, get loaded in there. And then eventually we can go and select the transfer texture node, and then we'll see that our normal map is essentially being converted. You can also switch on Daris again, then you see the normal map applied on the figure. That's also possible. So these calculations take a bit of time under the hood. I think this was in viewport 2D. As soon as it's responsive again. You got the discount code last time, right? Yes, I remember you telling me you bought it last time. I'm so glad you did, because it's just such a magic little thing. You're very welcome, AMZ. And I'm, as I said before, I'm super happy to show the, there we go, normals, to show the legacy UV product in action. I've made a video about this, so that's going to appear on the Daz channel soon, because it is a little bit fiddly to get going. There we go, we've got all this, and now we just need to go to the, so literally just load it in here, wait a moment for it to do the loading as well as recalculation, and then on the save image you just go back there, give it another name. So this is now Darius normal single. Did I spell that correctly? Yeah, normal single, save. And then once again, compute current frame. I think I might not use the bump, but for the bump, you would just, load it in here and then save out the bump. Less maps means less calculations in map transfer, which is the next thing we're going to look at inside Daz Studio. So we can go and save this project here. If I can share it, I will. I don't know if it'll open for you. You may have to plug in your own bits and pieces here, but I'm happy to share this as a screen grab. There's an article on my website that I haven't quite published yet, but it'll be there. So that's going to be on my website. You can have a look at this if you need the steps again. So we can go make him invisible because we don't need him anymore, and bring our Genesis figure back to visibility. I'll leave the UV prep pose on, and I'll go and start loading the textures we've just converted onto this. I'll send it to you. It's no problem. It's literally written. I only need to hit publish, just basically proofread it, but later today. And there's going to be exactly that node setup on there. So this is kind of the slightly time-consuming bit, but we'll do it here. So we don't have anything on here. Let's go and bring my. I'll do this by dragging and dropping. So Darius 9 converted. These are the two textures that we have, and we need to put them literally into almost everything. So arms, body, fingernails, head, legs, mouth cavity, and toenail. Yeah, basically everything. Perfect. So let's go also make these surfaces white so that the texture shines through. And this here just gets dragged into the base color. And eventually it should appear. Maybe it doesn't. Okay, fine. Let's go try this again. Left click and drag on here. Yeah, there we go. This took a little bit of time. There's Darius. So if we have time, we can literally convert the Darius character into Genesis 9 Morph and then import that into the Genesis figure. How's that? I've made a video about this that shows this process both for Genesis 8 as well as Genesis 2 and 3 characters. And you can do that all inside Daz Studio. You can also do it in R3DS Wrap. This is the normal that we're going to use. So left click and drag that into here. Wait a second. Thank you, Brian. Exactly, yes. It's in here. Now we have normals and I can already see them. There, yes, look at that. Filament shows them. So we have it. Good stuff. Good stuff. I'm pleased. Let me make this a little lighter here. His complexion is just a tad dark. Yeah, let's see it like this. There we go. You can see the veins popping out and stuff, and it's all in the right place. I love it. I love it. It's worked. And we don't see any seams. That is also very cool. It's kind of what we want as well. And this is just in filament, so it's going to look even nicer in Iray, of course. But remember, this is now with Genesis 9 selected on the Surfaces tab. If we type in UVs, we'll see it's still the Atlas UV set. So that's not really what we want. We want for that to be the base multi-UDIM set. And if we switch that over, then, well, all hell breaks loose. And there's, hands on the ears and on the hips. And that's just all, it doesn't really look good. And it's like the stuff that nightmares are made of. So we need to find a way to convert that large tile into the split tiles again. And this is where another tool comes in handy. That's also built into Daz Studio. That's called map transfer. Are you familiar with map transfer? Some people have heard of it. It's one of those slightly shrouded in mystery type tools, but it's in here. It's inside Daz Studio, and it's also on the Surfaces tab with a right click, and it's this one here, Map Transfer. And so it's a tool that can transfer the textures made for one UV set onto another UV set on the same figure, and it's quite clever. It's been around for a while, and it works really well. It's just a little bit difficult to get going. You've used it. You know how to use it. Ted hasn't heard of it. Okay. Yes, it's one of those things. If you look at it, it looks very unintuitive. I'm thinking of making a video about it. Josh has actually made a video. It's a really short and sweet video, and he shows you exactly how to use it. Like Josh, the fountain of information. It's really nice that he's shared it. So if you bring it up, it looks somewhat unintuitive, and it's because we have to do a bit of manual work with it. So on the right hand side here we have all the surfaces of the selected character, and on the left hand side we have nothing, and then on the bottom we have a bunch of things that we can adjust. And our aim here is to recreate the templates here as they are on the character, so that map transfer knows which surfaces go on the same tile. So the good thing is it'll remember things. If you do something in here and then you hit cancel, it'll remember what you've done. So let's take a look at the UDIM templates here. We have only 5 on the Genesis figure, which is, thank you, Julia, that's very good, thank you. So we have only 5 on the new Genesis figure, which is great. On previous figures we had considerably more, and that would, would just cost a lot of time. So if you click on template 1, we can see that this selects the head and the mouth cavity. And really what this means is that it's a shortcut for us to apply stuff. So if I go and apply a particular tile onto the head and the mouth, this template is designed so that this here is supposed to be the head and the mouth, and then template 2 is supposed to be the body, template 3 is the legs, template 4 is the arms, template 5 is the fingernails and the toenails. So we need to tell map transfer that, because that'll be different between figure and figure. So to do that, right click, bring up map transfer, and the way this works is you right click into here and create a new template, and it's conveniently called template 1, so that's perfect, that's what we want. So into this we now need to drag the head and the mouth cavity. So head, left click and drag onto here, and then the mouth cavity also goes onto here. You can do multi-selections as well and drag them on there. So now we need to go and create another one, which is called template 2, and then we need to drag the next thing on there, which of course I've forgotten what it was. So the cool thing is I can just go and hit cancel. It'll remember what that was. I'll just have a quick look. It's the body. Let's remember that. Template 2 is the body. Template 3 is the legs. We can remember that. Let's bring up map transfer again. So template 2 was the body. Body is here. Left click and drag that over here. Then template 3 was the legs, I think. Legs, there we go. And then I don't know, so I'll go cancel again. Template 4 is the arms. Template 5 is the fingernails and toenails. Okay. Map transfer. Right click, make a new template, template 4, which was arms, I think, wasn't it? I think, arms. Then template 5 is fingernails and toenails. So select multiple, left click and drag, not into this bottom, it has to be dropped onto the actual word, template 5 here, and then this creates that. So the cool thing is you don't have to do this every time. You can go and save this. So on the bottom here you can save this template hierarchy, and if you convert another Genesis 8 character you can just go and load it in. So I'll go and save that, bring it into my conversion folder here, just so that I know where that is, and I'm going to call it maybe G8 map transfer template. So now next time you could just go and load it in, and then all this is already pre-set up, which is cool. On the bottom here under surface options, this is the target UV set that we want to use, and in our case what we picked, but you could bake it to something else. You could bake it to, whatever you like, but this is what we need. Back in the day, like in Genesis 2 and 3, I think in the Genesis days as well, characters often came with their own UV set, and so if you use the legacy UV product by Cayman Studios and you want to use Rune on a Genesis 9 character, you'll find that it's not going to work out of the box, because that has the base Genesis 3 UV set, but Rune and the girl and Lilith and all these characters, they came with their own. So while it worked on the figure, you couldn't then use the base Genesis 3 UV set on it. So that means it also can't be used out of the box with the legacy product. But map transfer can be used to convert, like say the Lilith UV set to the Genesis 3 base UV set, and then the product will work. Just a total aside. A total aside. Oh, interesting. So 30%, 40% didn't even know that map transfer existed. Yep, it's a content creator tool, so it's kind of hidden there. 29% haven't used it. That's good to know. That's good to hear. Thank you for all your votes. I appreciate that. One of those things. More settings, right. If you go and select the templates here with Control to select all of them, you can go and give it a path for where this needs to be saved. When you don't select that, this isn't selectable. So make sure you select each template that you can technically save each template into a different folder, but we want to save them all into the same folder. And that's going to be my desktop folder. I might call that Darius 9 map transfer, just so that I know what these maps are. That's where I want to save them. And we can also say what file type we want. So I might stick with JPEG here, with PNG here. Baking quality is something you can crank up all the way to 10. I believe that'll be higher quality, but it also might take a little bit longer. So I might just leave that on 4 here. Or in the interest of time, I might just drag that down to 1. I'm not quite sure yet. Dimensions is interesting. So this is currently set to 32K, and it's not going to make the maps 32K. It's essentially going to retain the size that these maps have. So I have an 8K map. If I leave it on here, it's not going to up-res them, but it's going to make them all 8K. I don't really need that. I think I'm okay with that to be 4K, so I'll drop that down. And now I'm essentially ready to go when I hit accept. The thing though is, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go and click cancel, because thankfully map transfer is going to remember all of this. The baking process uses 3D light, and it's just under the hood. We don't need to worry about lighting or anything, but it will use 3D light, and as such we need to switch over our render engine for the baking process to work. If you do it now, I'm in iRay right now, so under render settings here at the very top under engine, if you bake it now, you'll end up with a bunch of black images. If you ever run into this, or if you've used map transfer before, things are black and you think, oh my god, it's not working, you need to switch this to 3D light, otherwise map transfer doesn't work. So now I can go back to here, and it remembers all my settings. Also, so I keep telling myself, yes, it does. That's good. 4K, and I might just set this to, maybe set this to 2. I did 4 is the default, but the baking process takes a little bit of time. So I'm gonna go and do this, hit accept, and we'll see Daz Studio eagerly work in the background in 3D light now, and we can keep a close eye on it in this folder, and you'll see these maps being filled out here. And then we have the split single UDIMs again. So very, very cool. So much carpal tunnel syndrome. Okay, interesting. Why is mouth cavity on 1? Because that's not where that is. Don't know. Good question, actually. Did I put that in map transfer? Maybe I've done it wrong. That's very possible. Let's see what the maps come out, and then we're gonna have a look at. The magic happens. Exactly. Magicness. Magicness. And Misty, I'm totally with you. It is one of those things, if I don't use something, I just forget it. And I think it's just the way of my brain saying, well, we don't need that information. Don't put it in long-term storage, just erase it to free things up. So funny. Let me have a look at some of your questions while this is, doing its thing. If I see if I can find here. It's powerful, AMZ. Absolutely, yes. What's the difference between the node-locked, Misty's question, what's the difference between the node-locked and the floating license? I don't know what node-locked means. It means, I think it's locked to a person rather than a floating license is usually something that companies buy if they have multiple people working with the same license. So for us indies, basically, we want the node-locked license. It just means it's registered to you as a holder, and you can't give me your license. But if I was a studio, if I was Decagon, maybe they have like 20 freelance employees and they have 3 licenses, and whoever needs the license gets it. I think that is what that is. If I'm not mistaken. What are the hardware requirements for R3DS Wrap? They're not a top-end computer, so it's you can use it on a GTX 970 system with 16 gig of RAM. So you don't need a NASA supercomputer for this, which is really nice. This is why I'm taking notes as well. This is also why I'm making videos. Like, my website is essentially this this huge notebook of stuff I don't want to forget, and it has saved my bacon so many times. Like, anything that you learn, it makes sense in the moment, and then 2 weeks later it's already starting to get diffuse again. I totally know what you mean. There we go. So the diffuse has been transferred. Now I bet it's working on something else. Well, that's actually the diffuse for template 1. Doesn't actually work that fast, does it? Oh, it's still writing it. Don't want to upset anything here. And it does indeed, doesn't it? Do you know what? While this is working, let me just go and publish this article that I was talking about, because it is literally ready to rock. And then you can essentially, you're the first people to have a link. Isn't that nice? Let me go to the converting skin textures for use with Genesis 9. That is exactly it. So I haven't proofread it. If you find anything untoward in it, please do let me know. But this is what it looks like, and this is essentially the whole thing that I've shown you here. And further at the bottom, yeah, it also has the screenshots of the node setups here, including, have I mentioned map transfer? Yes, I've mentioned map transfer as well. So it's essentially written notes of this thing. Let's go publish this, and let's not actually put it on anything else. Let's just go publish it. And then I will go and Brian, if you can grab that link out, it should be the first article that comes up on my website. Thanks. Then we can all have it. Meanwhile, diffuse for template 1 has been baked. Has it actually come out? Fingers crossed. Yes, look at that. Look at that. This is a little bit weird. So yes, I think you're totally right. This is the Linus has totally spotted it. That should perhaps not be on here and intruding on his head. So we may have to just bake template 1 again. But we'll see what it looks like. Maybe I've just put the wrong thing on the template. That is quite possible. Quite possible. Let's go bake this. See what happens. Maybe while it does this, I can go and show you the legacy UV product in another instance of Daz Studio here. I might do that. Let's do that. Thank you, Brian. Awesome. You're absolutely right, WebSoul. You're absolutely right. I totally haven't had a chance to even announce the winners. I know who the winners are, but I haven't had a chance to announce them. So I'm going to put that onto the top of the priority list early next week. Early next week. Thank you for reminding me, buddy. Let me go and I've added this to the toolbar here. Let me just go and do a little tidy up on my toolbars here and just switch off some of the ones that we don't need. Well, I think I've switched off a few too many. That's totally not what I wanted to do. Since we're waiting for the other Daz to bake the textures, You see, main I wanted to enable, and main is what I need. So that's my tools here, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, fine. Okay, it's not exactly the order that I want, but that's no. This is actually not correct, is it? Sorry about that. It's not main actually. Main disable, tools enable. We can live with that. We can live with that. So these icons here, that is provided by the product, and you can find it by looking for not so much legacy, but legacy UVs Genesis 9. And Cayman says he is working on a male version here, and like the Nihilist was saying in the beginning, it goes and adds the UV sets to the Genesis 9 figure and also provides the geograph bits for the missing pieces. So these two things here, they will add or remove these little shortcuts from the toolbar. Let me just go remove that, add that in. That should go onto the end. Yes, that's kind of where I want them. Perfect. So that's handy because we need to go in here quite a lot. The scripts in here, this is a preparation script that will add the geographs to the Genesis figure. Then you apply the old skin texture, and these three are essentially enabling the new UVs and, you know, do some rejigging under the hood there. So if we were to do this with Darius, we need to go and load him in first, because mostly figures have been saved, or material presets for figures have been saved with the as hierarchical material. So anything that says HMAT isn't going to be convertible by the product. So you have to have a regular material preset. So H materials won't work. So if I try to apply this, it's not going to work. So what I need to do is load in the Darius quickly, and then I just go and save his skin configuration that I want out as a material preset. And then I can load it with the new legacy product here. So this is something that if your figure has a HMAT, then, you know, you're gonna have to save it out before you use it. So since the eyebrow issue still is the same, let's see and remove his eyebrows from here, like so. Perfect. And now I can go. I'll just save that into the same folder. So save as material preset. I'm going to make a new folder called here Daz Scenes, or you can save it to your content library, totally up to you. And I'm going to call this one Darius Matte. With any of these and all these things selected here, compression isn't really important. And that's that. So I can go and either delete Darius or make him invisible here. And now I can go and load in my Genesis 9 figure. Gray figure, and then we can use the product. Right, and so sorry, it's actually not geoshells, it's correct, it's geographed. Sorry, yes, absolutely, my mistake. It's so true, it's geographed. And it works well for literally for the fact that it doesn't convert the textures, and it's probably the easiest way to use existing or older skin textures on the new Genesis figure, should you wish. That's kind of cool. And then if you use this method in combination with my video that I've made about how to convert the characters inside Daz Studio, you can basically have your old characters up and running on the new Genesis figure in no time. So with Genesis 9 selected, you can either dig into the content library and run the first script here. That's this one. That's going to prepare the figure. So I'll click that. It runs some magic here and goes boom. And it goes in and does all kinds of interesting fancy stuff here, including if you open this up, you can see that it's selecting all these things as well as its own legacy UVs geographs here. And now with the figure selected, you can either double click this from the content library, or in my case I'm just going to use merge into the scene. Loading my material preset. And that's going to look wrong now because it's really not meant for this. And that's why these little scripts are there that will now hopefully shift this into the correct position. So this one, the green one, is the one you use for if you had a Genesis 3 material preset. Then the kind of dark purple one is for Genesis 8, and then the light purple one is for Genesis 8.1. And you know what? I've just realized it's not going to work because this is a man, isn't it? We need to do this on a woman. This is actually just for the Genesis 8, 3, and 8.1 females, so we can't actually use this. It's not going to work, is it? I just realized that. So in an ideal world, this would now have fixed everything, but of course this is a man and it's not a woman, so duh. Whoopsies indeed, yes. The penny has dropped. So if you had the new product that Cayman hasn't actually released yet, this would work totally fine. And if you had a female character, this would also totally work fine. Let's just pretend it's all good. It's all good. Oucharoo. Oh dear. Yes. But that is the process. That is the process. I think in my video I've actually used a woman. In my video it did actually work. Just thought I'd let you know. Oh dear. How are we doing here? Oh, there we go. I think map transfer is done. I think it's baked everything. Hasn't it? Yes, it's baked everything. Let's go and have a look at where's view? I always forget where that is. View. Large icons. There we go. Perfect. So now we have the head and with the torso, and we've got the legs and the arms. I'm interested to see what I've done on the mouth front here. That is, I think that I wasn't supposed to do that. Mouth cavity. Yes, what was I thinking? What's on template 1 then? Oh, this was on the regular Darius here. Darius, no, sorry, that was on Genesis, wasn't it? Sorry. Template 1, head and mouth cavity. It's in template 1. It's in template 1. I'm just doing what I'm told. So, don't know what that's all. Could that be an issue with the actual template, do you think? That is interesting. So I did what this said, but is that correct that way? Curious. What does the UV view say? Well, oh, that's the wrong UVs currently. Like in base multi UDIM, this doesn't auto update. Well, mouth cavity though is the inside of the mouth, isn't it? This is not the teeth and the tongue and the mouth bag. Mouth cavity is literally the inside of the mouth, isn't it? Like the gums and everything. Maybe it's correct. Don't know. Let's go and so first of all, let's select everything and set the UVs to the regular Genesis 9 UV, so with base multi UDIM. So this looks totally horrible now, but that's also fine. Now we can go and use these templates to drag the appropriate texture onto the appropriate channel. So in this case, head and mouth, this goes onto here now. And that should now tidy this up. Anon, yes. Only need to take care of the normals here. So template 1 normals goes into here. And if you had other maps, you'd take care of that. That's that. Template 2 is the body. So that goes into here. And the normals go into here. Perfect. Template 3 for the legs. And if you do have any questions about any part of this process, then do let me know. I'm alert, I'm awake. Arms go into here. So sometimes this is a process that has had me literally flustered for years. And I totally understand your pain if you say, look, Jay, I really don't get what you're doing. I totally hear you. There's a lot to take in, and some of those features inside Daz Studio are so powerful that sometimes it's totally fine if you don't know the concepts behind it. I think what I find crazy about these tools sometimes is that I didn't know a concept like this existed, but I saw the tool and the tool didn't make sense because I was thinking I don't understand the concept. So it's kind of, you know, one of those things. Jay, here's your pain. Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, it could just be expansion. So if we do find anything on the head that needeth fixing, I don't think I see anything, which is good. So nice. It could just be within the seam margins. That's very possible. It'd be really funky if we just had Darius now as a morph that we could import. That would be kind of cool. But I mean, we do have half an hour left, so we could even make that happen. Or we could convert another character, or we could do anything else that that might make sense in regards to this process. The eyebrows look shiny. This is just because it's just the filament preview. So if we preview this with slightly better lights, it's probably going to look okay. That's a good idea. I could also save my scene before I hastily switch this over to render. That's a good idea, isn't it? Let's quickly do that and pretend no one noticed. Jay didn't save again. I'll call him Darius Split Maps, or Split UVs, perhaps. Let me bring in some appropriate lights here, and we'll see what happens. Judge my man a little bit better. Like a female. Dun, dun. Whatever you like to do, you let me know what you'd like to do. I'm feeling I want to bring the Darius morph in to really see the kind of the body popping on his thing. I'm thinking we should do that. To kind of have this as a complete character conversion session almost. That is what I'm feeling, but I'm totally happy to go with what you guys feel. Oh, we're not in. Sorry, this needs to be Ira now again, I suppose. And that might then do that, and that looks now like that. Perfect. Oh, and also I think his eyelashes, no, they have the default materials on there. Not so bad. Looking pumped, buddy. Yes, good point. Yeah, thank you for the morph. I like it. I like it. Convert another character 20%. Ooh, and morphs 80%. Oh, yeah. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it after 10 votes. Well, this brings up another question then. Do we want to convert the character with Daz Studio or with R3DS Wrap? I'm thinking let's convert him with Daz Studio because this is another extremely powerful thing you can do with Daz Studio, and not many people know about this. I'm down with this. Let's do that. Let's go and convert the Darius character shape and bring that onto Genesis 9. We'll see how that fares. Let's do it. Let's do it. With Daz. Yes, Jeff, let's do that. Exactly. For morphs transfer, yes, you can. Essentially, so in R3DS Wrap, we could use the same process that we've used here. But I would use the figures without the mouth open. So you need to end up with something that has eyes open and the mouth closed and is wrapped. And we don't need to use the figure, the texture node here. And this, we could literally do that with R3DS Wrap as well, but there is a way to do this with Daz Studio. So both versions have small limitations. So if you do it with R3DS Wrap, that's a more expensive method to do this. But you will be able, if you're a PA, you will be able to capture some of the high-res sub-D level 2, 3 HD detail. And since you are in the lucky position to have the HD Morph Loader Pro tool, you'll be able to bring that in to the figure. So you can do that, and the instructions are almost similar to what I've got on the Daz channel as a little mini series. It's a little easier to convert character shapes with R3DS Wrap because we don't have to worry about the internal mouth geometry anymore. So that's very cool. You can literally use your DevLoad geometry of G9 to export that, and then export Darius, make the size adjustment, and then just wrap them, adjust them with the brush, and then you export the OBJ out, import it as a morph into Daz Studio. But with Daz Studio, we have a really cool option that we can use the Genesis 9 figure and use it essentially as follower clothing on the Genesis 8 figure. Then we dial up the morph, and it then goes and wears Genesis 9 as if it was a fit suit essentially. And then we export the newly shaped Darius out, import that as a morph into the G9 figure, and then we have the shape on G9. And that's kind of a fascinating thing. Let me show you how that works. For that, I think I'm going to go and just save my scene here, and I'll use a fresh, I'm going to use a brand new scene for this, because it'll require both the base figures, and we'll start with the Genesis 9 figure. So while we're here, actually, let's go with Genesis 8. So we have, in our case, Darius is a Genesis 8 character, so we can use the 8 or 8.1 DevLoad gray guy here. It won't matter because I think Darius is going to be available on 8.1 as well, but 8 is going to work fine in our case. If you're converting a Genesis 3 or 2 character, use those DevLoads. I'm going to use this guy. Load him in, and then I'll dial up the, sorry, then I'm just going to literally leave him as he is. Then I'll load in the Genesis 9 figure, and then I'll use something exciting called the clone morph on Genesis 9 to literally turn that into the same shape. So this is him. The only thing I need to do under parameters, under mesh, but no, actually this is also fine. It can be high resolution score. Let's go and bring in Genesis 9 now. And this is the DevLoad here, so the one without the eyes. It doesn't actually matter. It could be, you could use the one with eyes as well. That's also cool. Just so that we know which character is which, I'm going to give them a different color here. So on the Genesis 8, instead of gray, I'm going to make that kind of bluish like this, and that's fine just for separation. Yeah, you don't have to do that. It's literally just for presentation purposes. So on Genesis 9, this is really where the magic happens. So currently the two geometries don't really line up, but in order to make AutoFit work, the Genesis 9 figure has something built in that is called the so-called fit clones, so the AutoFit clones. And they're available in a hidden menu here. So if you go onto your parameters tab with your Genesis 9 selected, on here under preferences, go into show hidden properties, and then you'll see a bunch of other stuff popping up on the side here, one of which is hidden and one of which then is clones. And it's barely noticeable, but we have all the fit clones going all the way back to the original Genesis figure. So if you left click and drag this in, then you'll see that at least the body will shape into the original Genesis figure. We have Genesis 2 female, 2 male, 3 female, 3 male, and we have 8 female and male. And since Darius is an 8 figure, we'll go and dial that one up. So Genesis 8 male goes up, and boom! look at the magic happen. So it literally means the Genesis 9 geometry literally snaps into place, which is just great. It's perfect, almost, aside from the legs, So we're gonna have to go and tweak the legs manually here, but that's okay. So right click and say, I think it's the right thigh. Rotation, is it side? It is, isn't it? Is it the thigh? It's probably enough to be like -6. It's probably just, it's not 100%, but you know, it'll be fine. I think there are ways that you can make it absolutely super accurate. I've never managed to do that. This is enough to make it match. We need to do this on the right hand side as well. If you do this with R3DS Wrap, then it'll be a little bit more accurate, and that should be enough. I'm sure there's some other magic that makes this literally snap into the exact vertex positions. Nerds are us, yes, absolutely. Okay, so with that tweak made, let's select Genesis and switch it to base resolution. That's very important, so that you can import the SD morph later. And that is really all. I'm going to go and export my Genesis 9 figure out as it is. Export. I might just go and call this one new folder. I'm going to call it OBJs. And I'll call this, so that I remember what this is, G9 base, G8M fit. So this is essentially my fit suit, and that's just an OBJ. Scale doesn't matter. I'm just going to use 1% because that's already in there. Selected roots, just in case you have the one with the eyes attached. The eyes and the eyelashes won't be exported that way. Hit accept. Daz Studio scale will also work, totally fine. And that is that. Now I can delete this Genesis 9 figure out and select my Genesis 8 male guy again. And I'm now noticing that dark blue is just a bit too dark, isn't it? Let's make that lighter, like so. There, much better visible. Let me go and import the Genesis 9 OBJ in again. There is a way that in Daz Studio, there's a way that you can go and strip out a skeleton from something that is rigged, but it doesn't work with complex figures like these characters. It just doesn't work. Modo scale. There, boom. So now we have both the Genesis 8 and the Genesis 9 that looks like a Genesis 8 in the scene. That's good to know. See, now I'm beginning to think maybe that should have been a little blue, or it should have had a little color. That, just so that we can see there's two different figures in here. So now comes kind of the clever part. I'm going to go and use the transfer utility to make the fit suit fit the Genesis 8 male figure. That works on the scene tab here by right-clicking on the scene tab. Under assets, there's the transfer utility. It's also accessible with multiple other spots here. This is the one I tend to use. This now lets us essentially create a follower clothing item, and in here I'll use the source for this is the Genesis 8 male. So this is going to be the donor rig, and the target is going to be my fit suit, the G9 base G8M fit. I'll literally use nothing else here. I'm going to just untick this box that says parent to source figure. I don't want to do that. It's the only one I'm unticking, and then I'll hit accept. And that now turns my fit suit into follower clothing. So here comes the fun part. Let me make Genesis 8 invisible so that I'm just left with the Genesis 9 geometry that's shaped like Genesis 8. But I'm going to still keep Genesis 8 selected and head over to my parameters tab and go and find the guy I want to load. So I think in my case, well, here Reynard is a good example. That is one of Will's characters, Oh, that's just the body. That's very cool. So you can go and it's not full body. Sorry, it's peephole, isn't it? Peephole. Where is it? Where is it? People. There we go. The Reynard now with head. Look at that. So what I'm seeing literally is the shape of the Genesis 9 figure change, right? Because Genesis 8 is invisible. I mean, Genesis 8 is also gonna deform, but what I'm really seeing here, the thing that's visible is the Genesis 9 geometry, and that's just so cool. If you look at the wire texture shade, this is all the Genesis 9 stuff that you can see here now. This is very cool, and that means we've now distorted the Genesis 9 geometry into whatever character we want. So in our case, it's Darius. Let's dial him up. There he is. Looking pumped, buddy, with the Genesis 9 geometry. And I bet you know what's going to happen next. We're going to go and export this shape out, and then we can go and import it again as a morph on Genesis 9. This isn't perfect, so you may need to adjust this in an external application. Usually it's fine. I mean, often if you have these anime characters, there could be distortions around the eyes. If you do this with R3DS Wrap, it's going to be really smooth sailing because you can do adjustments on the fly there. You'll also be able to capture HD detail that we won't be able to grab with this method. Yeah, but this is essentially the magic of it. Let's go and select my Genesis 9 figure now and export them out with this morph dialed up. So I'm going to call this one Darius 9 as OBJ. Same scale, just want to make sure this is still set to moto while I'm here. And filter objects needs to be selected root so that nothing else gets exported, like, you know, the 8.1 geometry. We don't want to do that. Perfect. That's that. I can either go and make this invisible now or just delete it out. That's also cool. I might just leave it all in there and load myself a new Genesis 9 figure into the scene, into which I'm going to import this as a shape morph. And then we can go and apply the textures we've made, and then we're basically having a Darius 9 figure. Super exciting. Yes, absolutely, WebSoul. That's exactly how it works. If you basically, once you fitted the suit, you dial up Darius, export Darius 9, then you dial in your next character, export whatever, you know, Necromancer, next one. So you just end up with a lot of OBJs, and you can then go and literally import them all into the Genesis 9 figure, even multiple at a time, which is kind of cool. So I only have the one, and the key really is that this needed to be in base resolution, so that now in the next step I can go to edit object geometry, no, edit object, sorry, Morph Loader Pro. That's what we need. And then here I think I had none, and then we need to go and choose the file we've just exported. Which is Darius 9 here. Open. And then here, just for good measure, you usually want to use reverse deformations. Set that to yes. Name, you can change it at this point. Darius 9 is fine for us, but if you're a vendor, you usually have a very specific naming convention, what a figure morph or what a body morph, what a head morph needs to be called. I'm okay with this. Morph subdivision I don't have. And override existing, we don't have something like that, but if you made multiple versions and you had something that was distorting, you could use deltas only. We don't need it, so that should be fine. So just the morph here and reverse deformations, hit accept. Success message, very important. That is what we want to see. And that will have created a morph under parameters, morphs. Darius 9, ladies and gentlemen, the wrong scale. Dang, buddy. Uncool. This is a good example. I have to do this again now. Morph Loader Pro. And all I did was I didn't choose the correct scale here. This needs to be the correct scale. So I used Moto. I need to do this. There we go. And now I can also show you why this other thing was so important. I don't want to make another unique morph. I want to actually I want to override what I've just done here. This could have issues with the mouth and the teeth now, because I've just dialed it in. Yes, okay, fine. That didn't work so well. But Darius, if we don't look at the eyes and the teeth just for a second here, Darius is working okay. I just had him, I just used the wrong scale and then dialed in the morph that created an automatic morph in the eyes and the teeth, which was the wrong scale. So one of those things. The best way to get rid of this is to just load in Genesis 9 again. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. And then do that all again with the correct scale. The eyes and teeth. No! Yes, that's another thing. So often you may find that since the Daz Studio doesn't really know about the eyes, it will just try to do something, but it might just get it wrong. And even if it gets it right, there's a good chance that you may have to go and make small adjustments there. So reverse, we probably don't need it, but I'm just going to use it anyway. We have the correct, no, we don't. Yes, we do have the correct scale now. Perfect. Is that right? Modo? Come on. You working? Yes! Look at that. Eyes are staying in place. Mouth is not falling out. But I can see that the eyes may need an adjustment. So it looks like he's getting that. I think the eyes are a little bit too close together. So this is something that you'd need to fix. But thankfully, there's a video on my channel that shows you how to do that. So you can either move the positions of the eyes now into the correct position, export them out, and then go and import those as a morph on the actual eyes. So forgive that. But we're not quite done with our morph process here. So this morph, first of all, we can dial this into like minus Darius, like negative Darius, that's not a good look for him. So I'll go and use parameter settings here and go and turn the minimum limit to 0. And that now means I can't go beyond 0. So that's what we want. Perfect. Then the next thing with this morph dialed up, we need to make sure that the skeleton follows. If I don't do that and I dial in a pose, we see Alien Darius with the claws and stuff. That's just not good. Not a good look at all. So we want to avoid that at all costs. And that we do that with the joint editor tool here. That shows us that the skeleton isn't in the correct place. To make that happen, right click, edit, adjust rigging to shape. Cutlery, yes. The eyes, right? Yes, we may have a crack at the eyes. I'm not sure if we can fit it in, but yeah, it's an easy fix. It's an easy fix. This is almost done with this slider here. Now we need to tell Daz Studio to calculate this on the fly, because if we don't, then the figure morphs, but the skeleton doesn't move. So we need to go put this into edit mode here, and then right click and hit ERC freeze. And then we can go out of edit mode. I think then, there, handsome, handsome. Now it works. Now it works. And now we have the correct character shape. Let's now go and bring his materials on him. I can either go and drag the textures on him again, like we did before. I might just do that, or save my old one as a material preset and apply that. That might actually be faster, since we have a second instance of Daz Studio open here. Yeah, let me just go and do that just quickly with Darius split UVs, indeed. So I'll load that scene, save this out as a material preset, and just apply that, and then we have a perfect, he says, figure. Everything's got to be somewhere, yes. I'm glad. It is just so freaky when this happens to you for the first time and you hadn't expected it, and you know you've been working on this character and you've maybe attached a personality to him, and then all of a sudden that happens. It's like things like eyes popping out and stuff. You go, no, this doesn't fit into my fantasy right now. Shape Rigger, oh yeah, absolutely. Shape Rigger, that is a Zevo product that does these things a little bit easier for you. It's still loading. I think had I dragged on the, there we go. Had I dragged on the surfaces, that would have probably been easier. So with Genesis 9 selected, I'll go and save as material preset. Material preset, there we go. I'll just call it Darius 9 Matte with all of these. In our other instance of Daz Studio, I'll say Darius 9 Matte. That should work. Does it? There we go. All right. Fancy. Your eyes need a small adjustment. I think just take them slightly further, like this. But I think we have it. I think we have it. Oh, Shape Splitter, right. Shape Splitter, that, yes, you can use Shape Splitter to separate the head from the body now. That is another one of my favorite tools. It really works well. And there is a built-in tool in Daz Studio, but I never really understood how it works. It always was very, very difficult. While the eyes are correct, how to make them load as followers with the character in a simple way. The best thing I can suggest is if you adjust the eyes to the place where they need to be, so that you can think of them, the eyes and the mouth, you can think of these things like follower clothing would behave. So if I go with my Genesis figure selected under parameters, I have this thing under morphs. It's called Darius 9, right? Up here. If I go and select my eyes, you'll notice that there is a grayed out morph that's also called Darius 9. And I didn't create that, so Daz Studio made that because it saw, hey, I'm using a follow figure with this character, a morph was dialed in, and I don't know this morph. So it created it and it kind of guessed the positions of what should happen. What we need to do is, with the eyes adjusted, take an OBJ and import this as a morph into the eyes and override this with the correct position. And at that point, Daz Studio knows what to do with it. There's no ERC freeze necessary. Usually it'll just go and work at that point. So we do have 5 minutes. Maybe I can make it happen. If it's not a difficult fix, let me make it happen. Let me make it happen. So what you do is, first of all, we're going to go and make this a little brighter. Even brighter than that. There we go. Just as a principle, so I'm guessing here, the eyes just need to be slightly further apart. You could use a reference geometry for this. I might just try to get it to a point where it might look okay, just to show you the principle real fast. So you select the eyes here. Oops, sorry. You select the eyes here, and then you export them out. And I think they're on base resolution already. No, they're high resolution. So you need to have that on base res as well. Export the eyes out. I'll call this one Darius Eyes. And same scale as before, filter objects just like that. I'll just do this in Blender. You can use any application. You can even use Daz Studio if you have the patience to click the eyeballs and just move them in the right position. I'm more used to Blender really, so I'll just quickly use that. You'll be able to follow along. You can use ZBrush, you can use Silo, you can use Hexagon, you can use anything. Typically, you'd have something like a reference geometry now in Blender or in your modeling app. I don't, so I'm gonna have to guess, but I'll go and just I'll try my best. Did we say texture conversion? Darius eyes, vertex groups. Perfect. So if I look at them from the front with 1, I'll go into edit mode here, and what did we say now? They need to be moved slightly further apart from one another. So that is, I think, G, and is it X? Yes, it is X. Go GX, and I'll just eyeballing it to about here. I'm just orienting myself on this little gadget here. GX. Let's say this is the fix. I can't promise that it is the fix, but maybe that is the fix. Maybe that is the fix. We're going to export this out again as OBJ. Texture conversion OBJs. I'll call this one Darius I fix just for now, and I'll call it also here selected only. Scale 1 should be okay, and I need to this is what needs to be enabled, right, Brian? Vertex groups needs to be enabled so that this actually works. That is correct, isn't it? Oh, do that. Yes, exactly. That's another possibility. Maybe we'll try that as well. Let me try that, Brian. I'm just going to go try that. So the magic now is that with the eye still selected, AMZ, you go and use your Morph Loader Pro again, which edits object, Morph Loader Pro, there we go. But now we're using it on the eyes, and we'll go and use Darius eye fix like so in here. Now this is important. We need to make sure the name that we're overwriting is the same as the one that already exists in the eye. So in my case, it was Darius 9. So by default, it'll take the name of whatever you've exported, but we don't want that. So we want this. And I also want to make sure this is set to modo, so that's perfect. And that needs to be set from make unique to ERC only or deltas only, so that it actually gets overwritten. And now what should happen is that the eyes should pop into the position that I had in Blender, like that. See that? Eyes fixed. And the cool thing is, as I go and dial in my Darius morph, they should follow with me doing that. So back at the original Genesis figure here, and now we're back at the Darius. So what Linus was suggesting, also really, really cool tip, you go to eyes, or actually you go to the regular figure here, and you look for, oops, dang. Where is eyes side? That's under actor, isn't it? Somewhere, head even. I can't see it. Eyes position, left, right, it's got to be here somewhere. Oh, let's look for side. Eyeball position, side, left, side, right. There we go. That's what you mean, right? Eyeball position. So you can adjust it like this directly in Daz Studio, and then once you're at the correct position, you export not the Genesis figure but the eye figure, and then you import them back as a morph like I've shown. I don't think it does, Misty. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem to need that, but don't ask me why. it seems to just work. I don't know why it does that. Maybe Lioness knows why. Maybe eyes also need rigging adjusted. It's really cool. I really love how we come together and just everyone has a different tip. There's often just like 5 answers to solve one issue, and I really, really love learning while I'm doing it, while we're all in the process. It's really, really nice. That's it, isn't it? That is all we have today. Look at that. We're literally coming at exactly 2 hours. Is that cool or what? I haven't needed it apparently. It was every time I do a pose or an eye adjustment, like a pose adjustment, it seems to work. It seems to work okay. But do we have expressions here? Oh yeah, this is. What are these expressions? No, that's not expressions, is it? So it looks like the eyes just kind of seem to work once they're in place. Oops. Looking handsome there, buddy. Like in pose controls, look side side. Do they behave correctly? Yes, there we go. Up down also works. That's nice. It's always good to check these things if you do have a character conversion, and if you were to tick this, like, you know, if you have this joint editor tool and this one step in which we did edit, adjust rigging to shape, there's this box at the bottom that says adjust orientation. Sometimes when you click that, then the eye rotation will be upside down, or they will, if you move them to the left, then the geometry of the body goes left but the eyes actually go the other way, and that can happen if you enable that. This is useful sometimes if you have a skeleton on which the bones would kind of stick out and wouldn't follow the geometry. But thankfully we didn't need it, so I didn't use it when I adjusted the rigging to shape. Just something to be aware of. You may see that sometimes, that some people like clicking this, but it can cause issues with the eyes. Changeling chick! We're just about to sign off. Look, we've made the handsome Darius 9, including skin textures and everything. It's very cool. I'm just checking if he can look properly, and it looks like he can. Yes, look, that's you know, that's good. And side side, sweet. Do we have expressions on him as well? I'm sure we do. See if they work. Just out of curiosity, many would suggest, hey Jay, quit while you're ahead. No, don't do expressions. Does it even work? Yeah, look at that, works. Quit while you're ahead. No worries, Darius. Ladies man, I like it. Look, I didn't mean it, buddy. It's cool. I always like seeing you happy, so there we go. That's cool. Oh yeah, the teeth also need a fix. So we need to, this is, again, I would do it exactly the same as I did it with the eyes. They're probably just the jaw needs to be a little bit scaled up. And the easiest thing really to do that is to use a reference for that. So you bring in your real Darius in the A pose, and then you look where's his jaw, and then you try to line up that jaw. So just a little size adjustment, and then the importing it would be exactly the same as on the eyes. Same thing. Just use Morph Loader and make sure it is the morph is called the same as your figure morph. So that the morph that Daz Studio has generated for you automatically. Very good. I think that is all I have for today. Just need to be pushed. Okay. That is all I have for today. Let me just have one last look at the questions. It looks like we've gone through them all. Hey, that is awesome. If you have any more, then don't hesitate to leave them as a comment below on this video. I do check that every once in a while, and then I can, get back to you. There's also that forum thread we have on the Daz Plus forum if you want to dump any questions or suggestions for future live streams in which you want me to explain whatever it is that you're asking for, do let me know. There's also plenty of videos that I can make for you. It is my job after all, as it turns out. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. It's always nice to spend that Saturday with you. And look at that, we made it just in time. Very, very cool. Have a wonderful rest of the night. And Changeling Chick, wonderful to see you, no matter if it was late or not. It's just wonderful to bump into you. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.